Good evening and welcome to No Spin. I'm Nidhi Razdan. Our big focus tonight, the political violence in West Bengal. It was a horrific sight. 8 people burnt alive in Bengal's Birbhum after protests erupted over the killing of a Trinamool Congress leader. Videos showing charred bodies, including those of women and children, have surfaced on social media since yesterday. This evening, the Prime Minister stepped in and said that those who encourage such criminals should not be forgiven. The BJP claims this is not an isolated incident and has demanded President's rule. Mamata Banerjee, on the other hand, went on the offensive, saying such incidents have happened in Gujarat and Rajasthan too, while promising what she called a fair probe. The Calcutta High Court, meanwhile, stepped in on its own and has decided to take up the case. It ordered the state government to immediately install CCTV cameras with adequate storage facilities to cover all angles of the scene of the crime in the presence of the district judge. It also ordered a central forensic science laboratory team to visit the site and collect the required evidence for forensic analysis. West Bengal has a decades-long history of political violence, but has it simply gone too far? Shouldn't Mamata Banerjee's government be accepting responsibility?
मैं पश्चिम बंगाल के बीरभूम में हुई हिंसक वारदात पर दुख व्यक्त करता हूं, अपनी संवेदना व्यक्त करता हूं। मैं आशा करता हूं कि राज्य सरकार बंगाल की महान धरती पर ऐसा जघन्य पाप करने वालों को जरूर सजा दिलवाएगी। मैं बंगाल के लोगों से भी आग्रह करूंगा कि ऐसी वारदात को अंजाम देने वालों को, ऐसे अपराधियों का हौसला बढ़ाने वालों को कभी माफ न करें।
These images of people burnt to death, even women and children, has sent shockwaves across Bengal. 8 killed in all, said to be in retaliation by a mob after the murder of a Trinamool Congress leader in a village in Birbhum district. The governor clashed with the chief minister, with Mamata Banerjee saying he should refrain from making sweeping statements, but the chief minister on the back foot, saying she will visit the site and that no one will be spared.
রামপুরহাটে একটা ঘটনা ঘটেছে, দুর্ভাগ্যজনক ঘটনা। সঙ্গে সঙ্গে আমরা ওসিকে ক্লোজ করেছি, ওসি সরিয়ে দিয়েছি, এসডিপিও কে সরিয়ে দিয়েছি। এটা বাংলা, এটা উত্তরপ্রদেশ নয়। আমিও টিম পাঠিয়েছিলাম হাতরাসে, আমার এমপিদের ঢুকতে দেওয়া হয়নি, কিন্তু আমাদের এখানে আমরা এগুলো করি না, আমরা সবাইকে অ্যালাউ করি।
The BJP though demanding President's rule.
पूरा स्टेट का हालत बहुत गंभीर है। पिछले एक हफ्ता में 26 ब्रूटली मर्डर हुआ है बंगाल की माने डिफरेंट पार्ट में। बंगाल में तुरंत सेंट्रल को हस्तक्षेप होना चाहिए, ये हम लोग का मांग है। कानून व्यवस्था पूरा के पूरा बंगाल में खत्म हो गया।
The Calcutta High Court also took up the matter and ordered the state government to immediately install CCTV cameras at the scene of the crime. It also ordered a forensic team to visit the site and for the police to protect witnesses. With Saurabh Gupta and Anushya Mathur for NDTV.
Well, my colleague Saurabh Gupta is travelling in Bengal and in fact near the site of this massacre yesterday. Saurabh, what is the latest from the from on the spot about what exactly happened and who exactly is responsible for this?
Well, yes, that's the big question, that how did a mob gather and then, of course, indulge in this violence that has claimed 8 lives, at least women and children amongst them. And that, of course, is the most unfortunate part. Whatever is happening around it is perhaps a reaction to that unfortunate incident. Now, Mamata Banerjee, the Chief Minister, is expected in Baktui village in Birbhum district tomorrow. And she will, of course, visit the site. In the meantime, the High Court's orders of setting up CCTV cameras and other instructions that have been passed in that order will have to be implemented. A CFSL team is also expected at the site. But at this point, the area in Birbhum is calm. And of course, there's heavy police protection and security has been provided to those who have suffered in this attack. But at this point, of course, we are on our way there. And what we know so far is that there's also politics on the side of it, and there's already been a demand for president's rule from the BJP. Mamata Banerjee also, saying that, well, I allowed your team members to go, you didn't allow my MPs to go to Hathras when that happened in UP. But obviously, more than perhaps drawing parallels to incidents, what perhaps needs to be done immediately is provide relief to those families and ensure that political violence, which has been so much a part of our culture in Bengal now, so to speak, we've been habituated to it from our childhood, needs to stop somewhere, and perhaps this time it's gone too far.
Right, absolutely, Saurabh. Thanks very much for that update there. Saurabh Gupta will be reporting from the ground on this big story as well. Joining us tonight, Om Prakash Mishra, spokesperson of the Trinamool Congress, Debjani Bhattacharya, who's a member of the BJP in West Bengal, Fawad Halim, leader of the CPIM, Tausif Ahmed Khan, a lawyer and supporter of the TMC, and Mamata Banerjee, my former colleague, now an independent journalist, also joining us tonight. Mr. Om Prakash Mishra, to you first. Should the Chief Minister really be on a day like this saying that these things happen in other states, they happen in Gujarat and Rajasthan as well? Shouldn't she be taking responsibility? This has happened under her watch in her state.
In West Bengal, we have a very responsive government and a very responsible government. And this is a most horrendous incident that has happened, and this is most deplorable, condemnable, and strict action is the call of the hour. And fortunately for us, the administration has moved in very swiftly. Actions have been taken against police officials who have been found negligent in their duties, and already a lot of arrests have been made, and we are ready to comply with any direction that the Honorable High Court has given. And so, therefore, here we are talking in terms of responsibility. Administration is very sensitive so far as these type of incidents are concerned. And the Honorable Chief Minister has also been responding to a plethora of criticisms and plethora of accusations that has been launched against us, especially in order to defame Bengal and the administration of the TMC. So therefore,
but Mr. Mishra, what is defaming Bengal? Is it the criticism that the Chief Minister is facing, and in this case rightly so, or is it the fact that people are being murdered in this way and being charged to death? I'm asking you the bit about the whataboutery. Should Mamata Banerjee be talking about, well, this happens in your state, and just doesn't she need to come up front and say, yes, this is wrong, shouldn't have happened, it's happened under my watch?
Sorry, Nidhi, you possibly have. You did not hear Mamata Banerjee. She in fact has condemned it. She says that this is a serious matter, and she says that effective action is being taken, and we are ready to take more action. In fact, she dispatched two of the senior ministers of the state cabinet, and the administration is fully geared up to meet the challenge. This is a horrendous incident that has happened. It has involved the killing of innocent women and children,
the same time,
and the state government is on the top of the situation.
But at the same time, we have this situation where the entire opposition, Debjani Bhattacharya in Bengal, has actually pretty much united on this issue of a breakdown of law and order. They're talking about the rise in political violence. Debjani Bhattacharya, the BJP though pressing for president's rule, the Congress stopping just short of that in Bengal, but all of you united on the basic point here.
Yes, because violence has been a regular routine in Bengal. From 1967, Bengal is observing violence, one after another. What happened to Kashmiri Pandits in 1990, the same thing happened in Bengal in 1970. In Saibari, brothers were killed and the mother was fed the blood-smeared rice. So Bengal has been a demonstration showcase of violence. And not only that, Bengal is also showing the worst fate of the constitutional democracy of India. So, president's rule is the bare minimum. It is required, Nidhi, I tell you right now. But this is not the end. This is just the beginning, because Bengal, the violence, the crimes, everything are happening in a politico-bureaucratic criminal nexus. This is the apt term used by Call for Justice when they came to investigate post-poll violence in May 2021. So politico-bureaucratic criminal nexus, if President's rule comes in, then the politico, that means the legislature, the politicians are removed. But even then, the bureaucrats, West Bengal administration is hand in gloves with the criminals.
But
Such grave crime. And Nidhi, I just want to tell you, where is Boktui village? It is near to Tarapet, it is near to Nolhati, where the Shotipet is one of the 51 Satipets is Nolhati, and Tarapet is the deity, mother goddess there. And there we are burning 8 women and children. I just can't think of. And whenever I saw the visuals, I scrolled frantically away. I could not see those. This is a moral void, a great moral void of Bengal, which I don't know how can be really managed and repaired.
Tausif Ahmed Khan, as somebody who lends support to Mamata Banerjee and her party, how do you respond to that? To what Ms. Bhattacharya is saying?
You see, this call for President rule and this narrative that Bengal has no law and order, it's very repeated, and we have heard this from last 4 or 5 years continuously. Yet it has not worked magic for BJP. BJP has a very clear agenda. In whichever state BJP is not in power, they will start maligning, they will start attacking the state government. Whether it is there's a present rule demand even for Maharashtra. But all these tricks is not going to work, because ultimately the BJP's politics does not help the people of Bengal. What has happened in Bengal, the very unfortunate incident, very unfortunate act of injustice and act of violence, which has been very heavily condemned by Mamata Banerjee, Chief Minister, and very swift action was taken. Not only were the cops removed, not only was the SIT formed swiftly, not only were the leaders present, but Mamata Banerjee has assured
Mr. Khan,
that
wouldn't you agree that this political violence now has really crossed all limits and all lines? This is not just this incident. Look at what happened after the polls in Bengal as well. So, isn't there something that's gravely wrong here?
Well, if you talk about the pattern, the culture, the pattern, the political culture, the pattern in Bengal prevalent from last 20-30 years, yes, it has. There is something very wrong, which requires collective effort of society and the government and the opposition, to do something good about it. But the kind of allegation, what was the allegation that the BJP spokesperson was making? Criminal, bureaucratic, and political nexus. That nexus is in UP, where the delegates of BJP were not allowed to visit the Hathras victims. The body of the victim was burned to erase the evidence.
What about isn't the best argument? Yes, UP has its problems, but at the moment we're focusing on Bengal, and I'll get Ms. Bhattacharya to respond to what you said in a moment. But before I go to Mr. Fawad Aleem, I want to ask Monideepa Banerjee, because Monideepa, clearly, there has been this cycle of violence and political violence in Bengal that has existed for decades, and everyone's talking about that. But when, Mr. Khan says that this is like a culture of violence, it seems to suggest that it's, this is just the way we are in Bengal. What has changed between the way it used to be, say, 20 years ago, and the way, it is today? Have lines been crossed? Have all lines been crossed now?
No, I don't think any new lines have been crossed. There has been a history of political violence in West Bengal. We have seen that, as the member from BJP said. It's been there historically. We have seen political violence in Bengal, whether it's in the time of the left, the Congress, and now the Trinamool Congress. It's absolutely accurate, as Mr. Khan said, that something needs to be done about it. What happened, however, at Rampur Hat, really needs to be looked at with a clean lens. And was it political violence? were there two parties involved? BJP almost doesn't exist in Birbhum, so it was not a BJP Trinamool Congress clash. It was not a Congress Trinamool Congress clash. It was a horrific incident which started with a political leader's death, a murder that happened. We know that on Monday evening, Mr. Babu Sheikh was, killed. The problem is that, was the retaliatory killing at all retaliatory killing? That needs to be established. And second, if the killing was at all political, a lot of people are saying that this is a fight within the Trinamool Congress, elements within the Trinamool Congress, and therefore, it is a political clash after all. But there's also another, sort of set of feedbacks that we're getting from the ground that this may have to do with the criminalization, with making money from various kinds of enterprises that go on in that area. For instance,
so is it the BJP, Monideepa, is it the BJP that's seizing upon any violent incident that happens, political or not, and making this an issue about imposing president's rule and attacking Mamata Banerjee? Is that what it's basically becoming?
Completely so, Banerjee. That is the problem. That, God forbid that, had two different communities been involved in this incident, then who knows what would have happened. In a way, it's a relief that only one community was involved in this, and therefore, at least, the BJP has not been able to muscle into the situation for political capital as much as they would have liked to. But there's no question, Nidhi, this culture of violence is frightening. And as I've been seeing in your, graphics, there has been a sudden sort of spate of violent incidents happening in Bengal over the last 10 days or so. A young man was pushed off a building and he died, and there doesn't seem to be a resolution to that. A councillor of the Congress was brutally killed, shot dead in Purulia. A councillor of the Trinamool Congress was shot dead in Panihati, not far from Kolkata, and now suddenly you have this horrific incident. So certainly, tempers are frayed, and Mamata Banerjee certainly has a challenge to put, get things under control. Let me just get Mr. Fawad Aleem's, comments on that. That the CPM. Has been at the forefront of political violence in Bengal for decades, Mr. Fawad Aleem. So, is it a bit of a case of the pot calling the kettle black now?
Well, initially, I'd like to condemn your comments. I don't give you the right to accuse the CPM of being a violent organization in Bengal. And as a reporter, I think so. You have the honest task of conducting a balanced discussion. Coming into the facts of the matter, Bengal has seen 26 murders within less than 10 days, and one has to keep in mind that elected members to various official bodies, 3 of them have been murdered within these 10 days. The second thing you have to keep in mind, if you look at the sequence of events, Babu Sheikh got murdered, and within a couple of hours we've got 8 people who have been burnt alive, and those 8 people are women and children, no way linked with with criminal activities. They belong to family members, they might be other things, but they themselves are innocent and above criminal activities. A child who's 7 or 8 years old is not somebody who needs to be murdered just because you have any sort of dispute with anybody, even if it's a family dispute. The second question is the question that should not be missed. The initial reaction of the Trinamool Congress was this entire episode of arson in 5 houses was because of a short circuit. Now, one must not lose focus. That was the first reaction of the district Trinamool Congress of there. The second thing you need to keep in mind is the police was standing just outside the village, and that fact has already been established, and that is why the state administration had to close the police officers over there. So the complicity of the police officers in the criminal activity of retaliation is already beyond doubt. Now, the court will have to conclude on that. That's a separate matter, but the facts are playing themselves out of here.
Look, those are all very valid points. I know you took offense.
I'll just finish off.
You took offense to what I said in the beginning, but I'm only pointing out that this culture of violence that everyone is talking about in Bengal politics, I'm sure you would agree that all parties, including yours, have contributed to that. And today that seems to be being used as a justification, not by you, but in a sense by those in power to say, well, this is how we are, and that doesn't make it right. The fact is that the Calcutta High Court got into this suo motu today on its own, And, you know, really through the series of observations that they have made, the orders that they have put out, it really does, you know, put your government on the mat, doesn't it?
Actually not. In fact, if we are expected to be more responsible, we are ready to do so. And I'm very glad to actually maintain that what the Calcutta High Court order entails, state government is already doing so. And secondly, about the point related to water votary, I completely agree with you that we should not lose sight of the gravity of the situation. And this is what the Trinamool Congress government is very much committed to ensure that nobody is going to go scot-free. This is a horrendous incident. We take full responsibility in the sense that this has happened. But at the same time, you should also see to it that whether the government is active or not, administration is active or not. And as Monideepa
but what do you
saying,
say about the spate of violence we've been seeing over the last 10 days? You know, the political killings that have happened, in particular in the last 10 days. Nidhi, what does that say about the situation in your state?
Nidhi, you have been a part of, as a journalist for many decades, rather, almost two decades or more. And then you know that in Bengal, violence was a recurrent phenomenon which was most despisable, but then that was a reality. Over a period of time, now these have actually come under a huge control. The big difference is that now it is not state-sponsored. It is not party-sponsored. There are violence and we condemn it and we take responsibility for it. But it has not supported by the ruling party.
All right, Devjani Bhattacharya wants to come in. I'm getting
earlier.
Quick last comments from everyone. Devjani Bhattacharya first.
Yes. Yes, just I want to ask that, I just want to say that this culture of violence, we are kind of trying to defend by saying this. Whenever some violent incidents happens, we say that Bengal has a culture. How did the culture crop up? It is basically because of the border crime. What was Bhadu Sheikh doing? Bhadu Sheikh was basically a sand mafia. He was accused of extortion. He was accused of by the person whose house is torched, whose family has been actually burnt alive. So that person is saying that he was doing associated with extortion works and sand mafia. And eventually, on 21st March, Monday, Abhishek Banerjee was being interrogated by ED at Delhi. And Bhadu Sheikh was murdered at around 8:30 by hurling bombs. Now, it is legitimate and rational for questions to come. Are these two incidents linked by any way? Because Abhishek Banerjee was also being interrogated in relation to coal scam and sand scam. Why?
How have you linked the two?
I do not know, because on the same day, you know, it happened on the same day. Interrogation happened on 20. I mean, this is a coincidence. But
what is the link?
Queer coincidence. So that link has to be probed, and that is the job of the investigating teams. And that is what I'm saying. It a very queer. I mean, is there any link? That is the question I want to raise. Because on the
Mr.
same
Mishra?
day, and who was?
Where does this come from?
How could Bhadu Sheikh's men retaliate by killing someone?
Mr. Mishra, quick word from him.
This is ridiculous. And if any person who actually would know or has an answer to the question raised by the BJP spokesperson here is the Home Minister. Let him know, because all the probe agencies are under his supervision and control. And so therefore, to suggest that there might be a link, this is what is called water votary. We are trying to do the role of the BJP in this entire episode, which actually tries to defame Bengal and the leadership of West Bengal.
Mr. Fawad Halim, does the CPM also support President's rule in Bengal?
Well, we are very clear that neither central or people from Calcutta are going to ensure that peace returns to Birbhum. It is the people of Birbhum who will ensure that peace returns, and the fight for justice has to be taken up by the people of Birbhum. Our State Secretary, Comrade Mohammad Salim, has been there since last night. Our Left Front Chairman has led a rally in favor of peace in Birbhum itself at Ground Zero this morning. And we are the only party that is connected with the people.
But President's rule, yes or no?
No, as we categorically said, nobody from Delhi is going to come and ensure that peace returns to Birbhum. And there is nobody from Calcutta who is going to go and ensure that peace returns to Birbhum. It's the people of Birbhum who have to take the initiative. And that's the clarion call we have given. from ground zero where these incidents have been taking place.
Mamata Banerjee, I have 30 seconds. How do you, in this fog of, the political accusations that fly thick and fast, and the BJP sort of really continues to be fixated on Bengal, its politics, there's a lot of back and forth that happens. How do you sift truth, from this the fog of, propaganda on all sides?
You sift through it, and that's all you do. As a journalist who has worked out of the state, and as a citizen, what is alarming is that all the political parties seem to be driving their own agendas with horrific incidents like this. I mean, it's time to, certainly the ruling party to take responsibility and the problem that why did this happen? The police station was not very far away from where this incident happened. Why didn't the police act enough? Let's get the basics in place. And it's also perhaps not be open on the opposition parties to turn this into political capital. That seems really frightening. That seems the only agenda of the political parties, and the ruling party, is so busy trying to fend off the political assault that perhaps, the basics of governance are just simply being overlooked, ignored, or something that just gets...
Well, let's see what the Chief Minister says when she does visit the site tomorrow. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us on this big story. That's it on the show tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow.